What's up, Rockstars? Today I am proud to present my review for Primal: The Awakening. Has this game lived up to the hype that I and many others just like you have put into this? Or perhaps you're new to this and you're just wondering what the heck am I about to get into? Well, I can tell you that right now. Now, as always, I'd like to start out with a quick thank you to my YouTube members and my patrons. It is through their financial support that I'm able to stay independent, which means that I take no money from any game developer for any reason. That way, I can give you my honest opinion and not my wallet's opinion. So if you appreciate that level of honesty where I can say whatever I want about any game I receive, then do at least leave a comment or a like or consider joining that through the links down below. Additionally, I'd like to thank my sponsor for this video, which is INTOTHEAM. They make cool shirts just like this. There'll be a link down below. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. For now, let's go ahead and jump into the game. Now, I am going to tell you a brief overview. There are many videos, including some of mine, that can tell you very in-depth details about how combos work and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to dive too much into that. And if nothing else, soon you'll be able to actually just follow the Kickstarter link, which will be down below, to either, sign up to, be notified when it launches or read through it and see for yourself what it's all about. But suffice it to say, there's a monster on the board. Up to 4 players are around there. There are 4 sectors, and you're going to be moving around the sectors and attacking. Now, why would you move around? Well, first of all, there's different things like there's terrain that can heal you, or terrain that you can jump off of or hide against. Additionally, each enemy is going to have a stance, and these stances have these red cards here, or these red zones here, which tell you where they can be attacked. Additionally, they can lay stuff like fire down, which doesn't allow you to do cards at all because you're busy dealing with fire, and so you might need to move out of there, or do whatever it is you need to do to be able to actually do your turn. Now, when you do your turn, you have a whole bunch of cards, and each of them give you some stamina and cost some stamina, or they might be free, they might not. And so you kind of have to decide, I'm going to discard this to play this, and then I'm going to discard these 2 for this combo here. This combo here procs this, and then you do whatever it is you need to do. But you draw 5 cards. You can draw more. You can play cards to draw them. There are cards that, deal stuff with, discarding and stuff like that. There are defense and attack cards. Anytime you're doing a sequence of cards or a combo of cards, you want to consider doing some defense cards, even though they're not necessarily adding damage. That's because you're going to actually have to draw an attrition check, and it says this is how many defense cards you need in your sequence to not take attrition damage. And if you don't have that many, you're going to take the damage, which is you don't want to take damage, obviously. So you're busy kind of dealing with that. Additionally, there is the struggle tokens on the enemy monster. This is really, really key. You got to manage this, because what he'll do is you'll draw a behavior card based off of an action, and sometimes it'll have a little thing down here that says, hey, if there's a struggle token, he uses a struggle token and suddenly bonus damage +2 for this one, right? So he hits harder, or does an extra thing, or makes you discard a card, or lays down fire somewhere, or whatever it might be. It's never good. And so you want to manage the struggle tokens by removing some of those. It has the behavior tokens. There's a peril deck. There's a quest deck here, not in this one. You have your weapon, your armor, and your helmet. Your armor and your helmet give you an element, which you're either weak or strong against different kinds of damage, as well as your health. So that's how that works. You have items and potions and whatnot. The last thing here for combat really is the mastery. So you'll pick a mastery, and then as you get, this one I have to play a yellow and a red, and if I do that 3 times, I get to flip it over, and now suddenly every yellow I deal damage. So very good to unlock, and that's for the rest of that battle. Then the only other part is obviously where you go and you craft. So as you fight these guys, you're going to get some resources and materials, and as you do that, or complete quests or tasks, or whatever it is you might be doing, then you can go and build better gear and fight bigger and better monsters, and that's kind of the gameplay loop, plus a little bit of story in between each of them. Okay, that's my overview. I'm not going to get any more into it about how you get knocked out, or what armor is and all that kind of stuff. I will talk about that in my positives and negatives, and so as I talk about the game, you'll learn more about it as well. But if you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I'd love to try and answer them for you. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to start out with a huge positive for me. This game looks freaking awesome. This is a cool looking game. You have some awesome looking art where you have like the most armored up dudes you could ever want. The most ridiculous big weapons. If you want a dude with a gigantic hammer that has the face of like a dragon with his mouth out of like magma rock coming out of it, you can have that because that's just one of the characters you can pick. Super cool design and theme. You got like this guy here and he's got like his like little mouth down there and his beady little eyes and gross and this tail. And then of course, you got, these kind of guys here that are clawing at you and swiping around and blowing fire and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. And these are like the most simple ones. If you look on the preview page, oh my gosh, there are a ton of cool looking monsters. So cool monsters, cool weapons, cool theme. There's not a lot not to like about this. This is definitely a game that I tend to gravitate towards, right? Because it just looks cool, right? This is not farming sheep. This is jumping on top of the back of a dragon and stabbing it in the back. This is what that is. There's no sheep involved. And I think that's awesome. So right out of the ballpark, number one, the first positive is definitely just how cool the theme is. All right, now the next positive is actually something you might already notice, but it's a quick setup. For a boss battler in particular, this is a quick setup. You have a single board, right? You have a token here to track your rounds. You have your mini in the middle. You have however many characters you have. It tells you where to place these little tokens on top of it for different terrain effects in different areas. You have the monster with its deck, which you just lay 3 cards down, stack the stances, stack the peril, stack the quests if there are any, and grab some tokens and then your stuff and you're good to go. Even the city phase, as you would call it, right? Where you're actually crafting stuff. I'm done. This is it. That's all I need. You have a little character sheet and a campaign sheet that tracks how many resources you have of everything and what you've built. And so it's honestly, it does not take a lot. This is literally almost everything except more player boards. And that's just about it. Otherwise, you're seeing like everything that came in my version of the game. There's just, it's quick. It's not like, instantaneous or something like that, but seriously, you can get this down on the table within minutes and start playing. And I think that is super cool and definitely, one of the big advantages when it comes to picking what game to play, right? So it's game night, you got your buddies over, you just finished some pizza or whatever, some barbecue, hopefully you're eating well and, having a good time, got some drinks and you're like, okay, what game do you want to play? And you could be playing this game before everybody's settled down at the table. You could have it set up. And you can't beat that because there are other alternatives where it might take 40 minutes. And so the vastly huge difference there when it comes to setup, especially even at lower player counts. Speaking of lower player counts, this scales really well with players. Now, how does it do that? It's actually super easy, barely an inconvenience. The only thing that changes is really the monster. So let me explain. Obviously, you have less people. A minimum of 2, by the way, and that's for important parts, because otherwise you might get stuck or something like that. Or if you're knocked down, you're just moving down rounds real quick, and that's kind of silly. But the health scales per player, so there's 2, 3, and 4, and then it has stance 1, 2, and 3, and how much health is in each one. So that scales. Additionally, how much struggle tokens they get scale as well. It's by the actual player count. And then some of the like a quest or whatever might be like lay down 2 times the amount of player tokens on this. And if you do that, then you've unlocked it. And that's really it. And so it's actually not that bad. In fact, more players adds playtime to it. Which I'll talk about in a little bit. But for scaling, it's super easy to do. There's no weird rules or anything like that. I can't stand when a game has rules that are like, oh yeah, it plays 2-player. I mean, you're playing with like the subset of a rule and you ignore this other game mechanic or you introduce this other one or some stupid junk like that. You just playing the game the same as always. You're just following a different number and that's it. And it works. I've tried it now with several different player sizes and it works just fine, actually. Additionally, that also means that it's drop in, drop out, where, if your buddy doesn't show up, you can text him the story if he really cares, but otherwise you can just play a different version of it, and guess what? He didn't get to fight that cool monster. Or maybe you'll fight that monster level, but he'll be a different threat level, so it'll be a little bit stronger. Who knows what, right? There are definitely some branching story stuff that they've yet to reveal, but either way, just it's nice to not have to be like, we need all 4 people here. You can play it with a little bit less, that's fine, or a little bit more, and that's fine too, and it doesn't hurt you at all, which is great. Okay, so those are 2 definite positives. I think right out of the bat that you're going to notice right away when it just comes to picking the game. Okay, now that actually brings me to one of my first negatives, and that's really the fact that at 4 players, the game can be a little long, like a smidge longer than I'd like it. And it could just be my inefficiency. I am sure the more you play it, the more you can see the combos in these cards, because I'll talk more about these combos specifically later, but building combos and the things you have to take account for and how far ahead you have to look at more people's turns, especially, it takes some getting used to, and you can get more efficient at it, I am sure. But for my play sessions that I've done with this so far at various player counts, the one at 4 players felt a bit long. Now that doesn't mean that, again, it can't get better, but when you first back this, you're first going to get it. You're going to be new. Everybody's going to be new. And so you're looking at this and you're trying to figure out how to build these combos really well. And you're going to notice stuff afterwards like, oh, I should have done this. Or, oh, if I'd done that in a different order. Or, oh, I meant to discard this with it because then it would have been on top, but it wasn't. So I didn't get that. And you're going to have a lot of missed opportunities to attack or to move or to, the amount of ways you can play efficiently is vast and large, and there's a high skill ceiling here. And so as you're figuring that out, it just gets a little bit slower. So take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, this is a very small focused on it, and I haven't played the whole campaign or anything like that. So I'll have to let you guys know in the full review once I get the final game, which hopefully isn't too long, from now, right? Hopefully they deliver soon on this kind of stuff. But at the start, a smidge longer than I would have liked. Where you're still having fun, but you can feel like it's slightly overstayed its welcome. I hope that makes sense. It's not like it's like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this to end. That was Starcadia Quest. This is not Starcadia Quest. This is still a lot of fun. It's just like, wow, that was a long time for just that battle. But anyway, that's it for that. This plays just fine and super quick. So I'm just talking about the battle here. All right, time for another positive, because we don't have enough positives yet, right? The monster variety is really cool, both visually. I mean, I just have 2 here, and these again are some of the 2 most tame ones. And as you can see, a big difference, especially if they were painted, right? I mean, these are fundamentally different kinds of monsters, and you can imagine the kind of attacks they can do, and their mechanics are behind them, and they act very differently. And I think that's actually really nice to see, is that it feels different fighting this guy than fighting this guy. And some of that has to do with the terrain, which I'm not going to get into yet, but a lot of it has to do with the mechanics too. So it's not just visually, though I think that's important. You're not just fighting goblins and orcs that look like big green guys and skinny, short green guys. I mean, these are very different enemies, and you definitely feel the difference when you're playing them. And a lot of that is because there's actually some really cool game mechanics. Now, I'm not spoiling too much because it's literally the first fight, okay? So, please don't feel like I'm, just tearing it up and not having you discover anything new, but this stuff is really cool. So, the one where you fight against this guy is called Earthquake, and the reason it's called Earthquake is because, well, there is an earthquake in it. So, I'll talk about the terrain in a little bit, but suffice it to say, this is a plateau, and the plateau allows you to actually jump on the monster and attack him as he's trying to attack back. And you can get on that until you're knocked off, right? So it's super cool to do, and you're actually doing that. So you're running to the back, and then you jump on him, and you're doing that stuff, and you're doing a ton of damage, and it's awesome to do, especially when it works out well. But then things change, right? Because suddenly you get to this, stance 3, and it says Earthquake. What does Earthquake do? It literally crumbles. He's stomping on the ground. He causes an earthquake, crumbles this, and now you don't have that anymore. You just have 2 rocks. Now the rocks you can still use to hide from damage, but you aren't going to be jumping on his back anymore because he collapsed and fundamentally changed the board. And that thing is kind of cool, right? That it changes like that. But it's not just that, right? I mean, if I go to number 2 here, right? It says when revealed, he gains 2 struggle tokens. Oh, that's not good, but that's part of the course, right? And then you shuffle charge and smash behavior cards into the behavior deck. So suddenly, now he has new cards. And then not only that, because the peril matches the stance, you go from stance, if I can pick up the cards, if you go from stance 1 to stance 2, you actually unlock a quest. And now suddenly there's this thing here. So suddenly he has a new ability here. He has new cards and new behavior and reactions that he's also doing. Plus, there's a new point of interaction for you and a new quest and what you're doing there. And now suddenly, especially, it interacts with these stars here. it just changed. So, you're fighting him and you're just now getting used to it. And then stance 2, suddenly new cards. He's doing new things. And now there's this quest thing. Plus something happened here. In this case, he became furious. So he's just like gaining like stagger tokens or whatever, right? And then finally you beat him in that. And you're like, oh my gosh, beat him in that. And then you go to stage 3 and then suddenly he breaks that. You can no longer do that. And if you were there, you get hurt because it collapses on you, right? And then suddenly he's, indomitable, and he pretty much always has this armor token where the first damage you deal to him, he's just going to ignore. So he's like this always armored up guy. So stance 3 version of this guy, fundamentally different than stance 1. These game events are actually really cool like that. Additionally, and in this one, it's not necessarily a good example, because they stay the same, but they don't have to. In fact, the other guy doesn't. Where the zones that, you can actually fight him and change. And I think that's, again, super cool. And, just really neat to do. This guy doesn't necessarily have events in that sense, but what he's doing is he's like laying all these fire tokens down that are like making you try and stay out of the fire, and he's like whipping around, and as he whips around, he's like clawing people. So if you're moving around, he just swipes at you. And so fighting them is so different. So different. Where, you're actively like, okay, well, maybe I don't want to move. Or this one, because they all have a standard setup where it's like, this is how you set up the earthquake level, right? You have the plateau here, then you have the sand here you got to run through, which slows you down. So to get there, you have to kind of trod through the sand to get to the plateau, to jump up on them, to try and handle that stuff. Super cool. Really enjoyed the variety, and the game events are just awesome. They're just super cool. Now, before I get any farther, I want to take a quick break to talk about my sponsor. You hate hearing about good deals or quality product. I can understand that. You can skip. There is a timestamp below. I never want you to hate me or hate a company just because they help support this channel too. But they honestly do. And I think with their support, it should be rewarded as well, because they have a similar mentality of making good stuff for people that work hard. And, God knows that's what I try to do anyway. And again, anybody who supports the channel, I think we should, as a community, try and support as well. I am wearing one shirt right now. I wear these shirts all the time. They're almost always in the laundry. This is after several washes, because I wear this stuff all the time. Sleeves fit good. It feels comfortable. Recently, they sent me some boxers, and I have apparently been missing something in my life that I was unaware of. But oh my gosh, they are. I struggle to accurately talk about how great these boxers are, because it sounds stupid to me, because I've always thought of boxers as just something you just grab at Walmart, right? It's just whatever the Hanes stuff is, or it doesn't matter, right? Nobody's seeing it, right? Hopefully, unless I'm bending down really far or something. But no, seriously, they are super, super soft and comfortable. They're not gripping you at all or anything like that. They're holding everything that they need to hold. Really, really quality stuff, to the point where that's all I want now. If I could live my whole life just wearing their boxers, I would. Great stuff. Additionally, these shirts are they're always doing sales too. And the link down below, and the code that it gives you will save you 20% now, not 10%. So they upped the percentage. So, if you've been holding out, or you've been wanting to look for some cheap merchandise that, cheap shirts that are really, really good, they have some that are $5. They have one of my favorite ones that's 10. And again, that's before the 20%. So seriously, the link's down below. Feel free to go ahead and grab some cool shirts. I'm going to be grabbing the one where the skeleton's in a pill bottle and it's bleeding like a rainbow. Super cool stuff there. There's also one where there's a skeleton in a space helmet that's sketched really cool that I hope to get as well, from their clearance section. Great stuff. So that's linked down below. Let's get back into the video now. Just wanted to give them a quick shout out and let you guys know about the deal. Okay, so I know I've mentioned it several times, but I really want to drive this home. The map is actually really good. In fact, better than you are giving it credit for. I guarantee you right now, you looking at this video, you're looking at this, you're like, this is 4 zones. It's stupid. This map and the changes in the map matter more in this game than I'm trying to think of any other dungeon crawl where I get all the map tiles I have ever played. Because while the map may look different, it doesn't feel different. If you watched my Candy Wars review that I posted before this, and I know not a lot of you did, and that's fine. I get it. It's not Primal, right? And that's okay. Not every game has to be. But I talked to it has like these verticalness to it, right? Where you can stack and you can be way up here, you can be way down here. I talked about how that makes you feel different. Like when you're fighting up here, it feels, and feeling is important here. And I'll be talking about how things feel a little bit later, and actually a negative and then some positive as well. But when it comes to the feel of the map, you feel like you're way up high, or you feel like you're way down low. It's not just that visually it looks like you're up high, but really you're just moving along no different than anything else. This map feels different. When you see this layout here and you're having to either hide among the rocks here or travel through the sand to get to the plateau to jump onto the monster, that you actually feel that. And part of it's just because of the just how important each piece is. You can only move one space, so it's going to take you 2 turns to get back here if you do that. And it's going to cost you 3 stamina, because you're actually going to have to move in here and then move, and it costs extra stamina to move in here. So it's going to cost you a lot too. And so you really feel that loss of potential that you did to do that. And then you have to judge where you're going. And a lot of it is based on him, because for instance, if you know he can do some freaking tail swipes, because he loves to do tail swipes, which you could have guessed. By the way, if you look at the monster, you probably figured out what the monster is going to be doing to you. Anyway, so if you look at that, and then you have to follow whoever's aggro, because at the end of the turn, he's going to face whoever's aggro. So if the person that's aggro is over here, then you might want to actually go with the guy who's aggro, because when he turns, he might tail swipe you. So you know he's facing the guy who he's angry at, he's actually going to whack the people behind him, right? And so you might actually be safer there, especially if it's a shield guy, because then he can save you or something like that. But perhaps not. Perhaps if he's over here and you want to go the opposite way, or maybe you want to heal because this thing will let you heal, and so you can actually get some healing in. And that's kind of rare to do unless you're like stacked with healing potions, which you probably shouldn't be, because there are other potions that are helpful. So you'll go this route instead. And then of course, when that breaks and suddenly you can't jump there anymore, and there was an earthquake and you got rocks tumbled on you, so you got damaged, and now suddenly you just have to dodge between the rocks as he's like going crazy and is indestructible now. And the movement in here is constant. If you don't move, if you just stand there and are shooting him with arrows, you're going to be getting a actual, like a threatened token, I believe it's called, a target. I can't remember the exact word. I think it's threatened. Either way, you're going to get that, and essentially now you have to draw 2 of these. So it's much more likely that you are actually going to get hurt, as you just stand there and attack them. It encourages you to move. Additionally, again, like if they're laying fire down, if there's a fire in your spot, you can't lay any cards down in your sequence. So you're just stuck. So where you are really matters. The terrain is what drives this. And so I want to give a special shout out to the terrain. For instance, this is brush. Brush is cool. When I was fighting this guy, right, instead of this here, there was brush here, and this was like here, I think, or something like that, right? Now, why is that brush cool? Because you can actually go in there and hide in the brush and pause your turn. So you can like move right out of the way, and then you can just be like, okay, now I'm hiding in this brush, and I will pop out after your attack, right? And so you're planning that, by the way, based off of who has aggro or who can draw aggro at the end of the turn to turn him a certain way so that you can then pop out and attack. Because he might be facing this way, and he might not be able to be attacked in his head like this guy. Like, I mean, look at his head. You're not going to hurt him in there, right? And so you can't hurt him right now. But you know what? I'm going to move here, and I'm actually going to hide in the brush. And because I also wanted to discard the card that's there, because then it'll be on the top of my deck. As long as it's on the top of my deck, I'm going to get double damage, right? So I just want to discard that, and then I just want to play attack cards and I have one that's free that I can just start in right away. But obviously I can attack him now. So I'm going to wait until after her turn, because she can draw aggro, and I know that because we were talking. And so then she draws aggro, flips him out, and then suddenly I jump out of the brush and I'm attacking again. It's my turn again for the rest of the turn, right? Until I'm done. And that's really cool. But guess what? If he blows fire, the brush is gone, right? So the terrain is always changing, and you use it all the time, and your position matters so incredibly much here. It's way less forgiving than something like Arena or any of these other games that have like a range, right? Where it's like I can attack anybody in this area. It's like these are 4 points, and if you're in the wrong place, then you got to figure out how to fix that, right? Or maybe you just have to save up for your attack, so you're doing that. I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I was seriously impressed with how much this mattered and how much it made me realize, because I scoffed at the same 4 spaces, right? 4 spaces. What is that? It made me realize how little the map matters in the other games I play. That when it comes down to it, right? Even though I can move this way or move that way or move that way, at the end of the day, I just need to either be on the side. It's like I thought about Oathsworn, right? Oathsworn, it has the flanks, it has the head, it has the side. That's it. The same thing as this. It just has a lot of fluff around it, right? And so that fluff is cool. I get that. And, we can, run along the trees and do all that kind of fun stuff too. But, even run along the trees, it's got nothing on the terrain interaction that you have in this game, on how much the terrain matters in this game. Really, really, really impressed with it. I cannot stress that enough. Because I know this was a contention point for a lot of you here, and I'm here to say, trust me when I say, when you get it, you will be impressed with how much it matters where you are and what it is you're doing and where other people are and where he's facing, and all of that combined together to give you this really great sense of a unique map. Okay, let's talk about struggle. This is a genius idea. So again, all this does really is whatever the game designers want. So at first I thought, it does this buff him, right? Because this guy, he had a ton of these buffs, right? Where he would use these tokens and just buff up. This guy just freaking hoards it. He uses it sometimes, but there are a lot of cards here that don't have that part on the bottom. And the reason that is because his trait actually makes it to where if he has 4 of these or more, he actually gets that armor token. So he's constantly typically armored up unless you can really tear him down in the struggle. And the problem is, again, he's gaining those every time. And for the stances, he's gaining even more over time. Plus he can gain some of them from his behavior cards. So he is definitely one that you can just imagine him like running around headbutt and stuff, right? And he's really struggling against it. And so his reaction is to struggle then too. And it just makes him harder. So it was really nice to focus on these, mainly because it gives you something other than just attack to do. I talked about playing defense and how defense is important to play. Well, dealing with this is too. So you have this decision point that's now threefold, right? So you're standing here and you could discard all of your defense cards for your attack cards. And if that's all you want to do is play your attack card and you're going to have to, get rid of all 3 of these, well, guess what? That's 2 defense that you could have played. That's important because now you're probably going to get hurt. Is it worth it to attack him? Or maybe not only do you have that decision, but one of those defense cards could actually get rid of 2 of those struggles. Right here, remove 2 struggle tokens, right? Maybe I need to play that. You know what? This is actually expensive. This is more expensive than my attack. But it'll mean that the next attack, because I know my buddy over here has 3 attacks he wants to play, he won't be armored up. It'll be worth it because we'll prevent him from doing that. Or hurting me more, or reacting to him by hurting him more, because he's going to get some reactions here from that, and that's going to hurt. So there's a lot of decision points when it comes to building the combo, and adding this I thought was really smart. I'd already known about the defense and I thought that was kind of cool, but this struggle and how it interacts with the rest of the game mechanics is really good. And before I move on from this point, I want to talk about integration of mechanics. I talk a lot in my reviews about nuanced mechanics that are simple to understand, but all work together. There is not one part of this game that doesn't affect at least 2 others, right? If you think that all this was to check how much defense you had, then you'd be surprised to know that when you jump on him and when you're trying to prevent a behavior, you actually have to flip this over and then flip the card in your deck and check the stamina cost. And if the stamina cost is the same or more, then you actually get to deal your damage. Otherwise, you actually get bucked off, right? So suddenly it's used there, right? Or again, when you're fatigued, suddenly you're drawing 2 of them, right? Or when you want to use your healing potion, if it has a 1 on the discard, you actually heal for twice as much. So if there's been some low attrition recently, you actually heal them for more. That again is super cool. And there are 3 game mechanics right off the bat built off of something that's, as far as I knew, was just there to check that you were playing defense cards. Again, really, really a neat idea. And so adding stuff like these struggle tokens, where you're trying to manage that, and it's interacting with the perils, and it's interacting with the behavior, and it's interacting with my cards, It's just super cool. It really is a neat idea. And the fact that it's not even combat focused, and the fact that you're not dealing damage, right? You're not getting closer to defeating him. You're making it to where you can maybe survive to the end, right? Because you don't want those piling up. Trust me, it gets bad quick. All right, now I'd like to take a quick moment to talk about card variety and just how awesome it is. Now I want to read off a few. I might show the camera some, but for the most part, I just wanted you to get a sense for how these are not all the same at all. In fact, there's a huge difference in what you can do, right? So, for instance, here is Last Breath. Now, this is for the sword guy, and he's going to play different than, somebody else, right? And I'll get more into that later. But in this one, I can either gain 2 stamina or it costs 2 to play. But if I play it, it says deal damage to the monster equal to the damage you currently sustain. So as I'm tanking, right, it's encouraging that tanking. As I'm getting more damage and taking the hits, I can actually deal that damage back. He's very big on dealing damage through defense. This is a defense card, which means I can deal damage without an attack card. I could play just this and have my 1 defense. I didn't have to play an attack card and I still hurt him. Additionally, it all procs off of these other cards that you have. So, for instance, in this one here, it says if I play a yellow, I get to choose a player to draw cards equal to the printed stamina cost on the topmost part of my discard pile, right? There's another one where I went the first basic one he has. If I play yellow, I get to remove a stamina token just by playing a defense card. That's great. And then, of course, on the Shield Master, if I play a red afterwards, now suddenly I've done that. And if I flip this over, every time I play a yellow, I deal 5 damage to the monster. I'm actively using my shield as a weapon now, and nobody else gets to do that. So I can play down this 1 defense card, and I can deal damage based off of the amount of damage I have. I can deal damage based off of being a shield master if I've trained into that. I can get rid of a stagger token if I have the equipment for that. There are many different things I can do just off of a defense card randomly from here. I was able to talk about all those different possibilities just now, and it doesn't even draw aggro, which is also, again, great. When you can deal 10 damage, 15 damage perhaps. I mean, who knows how much you can actually stack that for. You can hold on to that card and just keep taking the damage on purpose. In fact, there are cards that allow him to take damage, to do different things. You could have something like this. It's a 0 cost. It's free to play. It's a defense. You can just throw that in a segment. Why not? Unless there's a behavior attached to it. Or you can keep it. It's called Block. When a behavior card is triggered, if you are in the front center, you may discard Block from your hand in order to cancel its effects. You're just like, nope, that card didn't happen. You're welcome, everybody that's in here, right? Again, really great. Here's Pressing Strike. This is an attack that costs 2, and I can generate 2 stamina. This one, if the card previous to it was yellow, I can remove 2 struggle tokens. So again, I can deal damage, right? Anytime you play a red card, you deal the damage of your weapon, in this case 3, plus I get to remove 2 struggle tokens. But I'm going to gain aggro. He's not going to like that, right? And there's just all sorts of cards like that. This one, this is great. I just did a 15 damage, literally 15 damage attack based off of this. So this was a Crescent Strike. It's a 3 cost, right? Though there are ways to even play this for free. And it says deal damage equal to the number of aggro cards in your discard pile. I had 9. So I had 9 aggro cards in my discard pile. So I was able to, it was my attack plus 9, plus this was not the only red card I used. In fact, I also had 2 yellow cards, which is 10 right off the bat. It was insane. No, it was 1. It was 1 yellow card. Either way, like, you can do a ton of damage. It's incredible. This one, Shield Dance, I can actually deal 3 additional damage if the yellow one was in front. So again, that's 3 plus 5 plus 3 for this. And additionally, if I'm mastered with the Shield Master and doing extra damage, I can play this for free. So there's all of these kind of different cards, and there's little things like Assist that I can actually help another player. So on another player's turn, I can discard these cards to have them draw cards, and they can help me draw cards. There's one here. Let's see. Where's a great one that I was wanting to see? Okay, this is great. Oh, I'll wait to read that one because that's a specific portion there. Here, this one. Repulse, right? It says remove 2 struggle tokens. That's great. If I'm mastered, all allies draw a card. So suddenly I can just be like, no, stagger token's gone. Everybody draws a card. You're welcome. Like, I'm just that, kind of buffing tank helper guy. And, again, that's, I think, really, really great. And there's a lot of this kind of stuff. I could keep reading all of these. I mean, there's stuff like Untouchable where it counts as 2 defense, right? All sorts of neat cards like that. Speaking of Untouchable for 2 defense, let's go ahead and discuss upgrades. Upgrades in this game are incredible. If I can pick them up, they are great. So there's a little number back down here. It says how much experience you need as a party to be able to do it. And it's as simple as I can take any of the 2s I want, or I can take any of the 1s I want, but I have to match my weapon, which decides what my deck is kind of built in, right? And I can have less cards or more cards in attack and less cards in defense, or vice versa. With this, like, this is a level 2. It's called Get Behind Me. It costs 0. It does give me aggro, and I can use it as an assist if I want to. Or it says, well, Get Behind Me is on top of my Discord pile. Players in the sector cannot take damage. So if we're just piled on here, not only do I grab aggro, so he's going to be facing me, but if we need to attack the head and I'm standing there, we can all stand there in at the head and just wail on him. And guess what? Everybody's behind me, or I'm in front of them. And I think that's great. All I have to do is do that and be like, okay, you guys take your turns. Feel free to just tear this guy up. It doesn't even matter. Just stand there and attack him. That is awesome. It's super cool. That is a huge card. And you know how good you feel getting that added to your deck? And that's just a level 2 card. I can't imagine what 3, 4, 5, 6 does. It's really meaningful. It's to the point where you get excited to get that card. Oh, dude, I can get this, okay, everybody get behind, like you literally said, get behind me. So you guys can all pile in there and just tear into him. Super cool card. And every character has stuff like that, which is awesome. And each character is kind of doing these different things. So the archer person has like this aim trait where they can actually like build up to a big attack, right? So if they've aimed, then they do an additional 7 damage. Yes, hello, that's awesome. Their mastery card has a thing called like burst, where at the end of their turn they can slot a card under there, and once they do 4, suddenly they flip that over, they get all those cards back and they can just play them. That's awesome. Again, super cool, right? It's really, really neat what they do. This hammer guy, he can just freaking stun him and just make it to where he can't even react and just keep hitting him like that. Really, really cool card upgrades. The card variety is huge. The card mechanic in this is the game, and it makes it. It does not break it. It's awesome. All right, it's high time for another negative. I do have a few, I promise. Though, in case you couldn't tell, this is a great game. I don't want to beat around the bush here. This is a fun game, and everybody that played it liked it. So I don't know what else to tell you besides that. Well, I guess I'll tell you a little bit. Okay, so one of the little negatives that I have, again, I'm really big on how things feel. So while I am able to do stuff like Get Behind Me, right? And I'm able to, play a defense card that attacks. And that's different, right? It is legitimately different than the person that's taking aim, or the person that's just doing multiple combo slashes, like the aggro guy, or the hammer guy that's just slow hitting but can stun. I get that they're different, and they are, what you're doing thematically is different, but what you're doing as a player is actually all the same. At the end of the day, you're playing a string of combo cards, just like everybody else. Now, what those combo cards do might be a little different, but it's still that. So while he might have Rampage and he might have Slash, they both have a card that says go get a Rampage slash or a Slash card from your deck and add to your hand. That's the same card. You're just calling it different things. Now, how Rampage works and how Slash works, slightly different, right? But the actions you're doing is all the same. So if I'm playing him, it doesn't necessarily feel any different than playing her. Because at the end of the day, again, I'm just matching. I'm paying the stamina cost, and this is the one card that allows me to attack. I'll discard that to play that. And then I wanted to combo that with this. So I'll do that, which just requires one more. So I'll just do one more. That's an expensive one anyway. I can say that exact same sentence for her. I can say, oh, this one's that. I'll do that. I want to do that one first, and then follow up with that one. I'll get rid of this expensive card that just gives me one anyway. I could say the same thing for both players, for all the players, because that's what you're doing, right? And so I guess when it comes, because there are no abilities, right? We talk about like dungeon crawls or even like some skirmish games and stuff like that, where you have these abilities where you can you're going to leapfrog everywhere, or you're able to, zoom across the map, or you're able to, take double turns, or you have this other mechanic over here that you're doing, or you have these tokens, these stealth tokens as the rogue, and you can go in cloaking and do stuff like that. Like there's a stealth mechanic that she has, but it doesn't play any different. It's not an ability. It's still just a card. And so they don't actually play any different. even though they do. I hope that makes sense. They just don't feel any different. And so even if they were to add another character, I would be excited about the new combos you can do, at the end of the day, you're still just doing combos, and it might be blue, blue, red, or it might be red, red, blue, but at the end of the day, it's 3 cards you lay down on the table. So I don't know. It is all, I always strive for something to really be meaningful in how it feels. So it's like, I love playing this character, because of the mechanics. And really, if you like the mechanics, you'll like playing any of the characters. All right, but you can customize different ways. So let's talk about gear. Now, gear is just awesome. You have so much gear. I only have this, like a horn version of stuff right now. But it is big. There's a lot of stuff that you can build and do, which is great. The elements matter because you either get +1 damage or -1 damage, and that's every single time. You're going to be attacking a lot. You're going to be getting attacked a lot. So it adds up. But you're not like stonewalled. If you have a weak weapon, you can still deal damage. So that's still good. Each of these, if you notice, every single card here has an ability. This one has one at the start. This one has one if I'm accumulating stamina. This one has one if I play a yellow. This one I can just choose to use at any time during my turn. This one has to do with the setup where I get to place a trap token and then place a counter on it. Like, all of the gear that you pick matters, and it's all different, and it's a big part of what makes your character more unique, because your character always has the cards that it has based off of your gear. Your gear is what's driving that, right? As a level 2, sword and shield guy, I always have the level 1 and 2 cards available. There's no customization there except on where you're slotting it. But for the most part, it's driven from your weapon set, which derives with how many red cards you have, how many blue cards, how many yellow and how many green cards you have. Based off of the abilities here, and you can proc that. Or maybe you just want high health and that's all you care about. Or maybe you don't like traps and instead you want the crystal spear that just allows you to hold, if you have 3 blues in your hand at any given time, you do 7 damage. Well, that's not necessarily great if all I have is 4 blue, but if I pair that with a weapon that gives me 6 blue, well, that's a little bit easier to do, I would think. So there's a lot of that kind of cool stuff going on here too that just really adds to it. Where the gear, I think, is one of the highlights of the game, and definitely the driving force for customization. All right, let's talk briefly about story. Story is just enough. I'm going to put it as a positive, mainly because I think it aligns well with the setup time of this game. It would be unfortunate if this game was a big, small setup, but a long story with a long, village section or something like that. You are not going to be sitting here spending 20 minutes in the story. You're going to read a little bit of story. You're going to maybe make a decision. You're going to choose which quest you want to do. You're going to craft some stuff, and you're going to go fight another boss again. What you see right here is the meat and potatoes of the game. This just enhances it, and that's all it's meant to do, and that's all it does do. And I'm happy it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not some over convoluted thing. You got resources. You can make stuff. You can figure out where you can get resources, and you can base that decision on where you go next. And that's it. And that's fine. I'm actually okay with that. That's why I'm putting it as a positive. If it had been overbearing, I would have actually commented on how it seemed at odds with the rest of the game, because you can set this up so quick. And there's so much mechanics here. If they had done the same amount here, I think it would have detracted from this experience a lot. So happy to say that there is story. It actually seems to be well written. It seems very interesting, actually. But it's not, this is not either fields. It's not no game mechanics at all and nothing but story. It's not just an interactive storybook with $300 worth of components to it. This is a board game where you're fighting monsters and you craft some stuff sometimes and read some story so it has context. And I actually like that. That's what I wanted from this game, and that's what it's giving me. Okay, now I have a note about complexity, but before I do that, I want to mention one last negative here for me, and that is that upkeep can get kind of cumbersome or long. Now, let me explain that. When you place a card down, right? Like let's pick one here. Here's a red, okay? We're going to pick a red. Let's say I'm this guy. I'm going to gain aggro, right? Which is great. Okay, so I'm going to gain aggro. Let's say I didn't have it, but now I do because I just played this card. It's a pressing strike. It's going to attack him. I'm going to attack his booty, right? That's fine. I'll attack his tail. I'll do some damage there. Great. I feel good about myself, right? Well, because I did that, now he's going to react. So I have to flip this card over. He's going to gain 2 struggle tokens. And then if this is here, I'm going to add a token onto that. So I'll add a token there to activate Blind Rage. And then that goes away. And now he's going to flip over here, which does this card, which acts anytime he flips. So now I have to do this one. So 2 damage to all players in the rear sector. If there are no players in the rear sector, all players in the flank sector suffer for 1 damage. Targeted players may discard their green card from their hand to destroy a rock terrain in their sector to avoid that damage. And then he's actually going to pay 2. So the 2 he just earned to do bonus 2 damage. So are you going to take 3 damage or do you have a green card? Are you going to take 3 damage or are you going to have a green card? Or are you going to use a rock? And then they have to discard that, and then we put that here. Okay, now let's see, that's the end of the round. Well, now this one's going to interact, and now we're doing this one. And the player with the aggro token may discard a blue, otherwise Torment gains an armor token. Okay, so that was pretty quick. They can get more detailed than that, a little bit more longer than that, especially if... especially that they do that each time. Now let's say, right, and so, okay, so we're going to clear that out. We're going to do that, and that's fine. Okay, that's great. And now we have some more stuff here that we're going to do. This card in particular actually means that it's going to double up. So when it does the next thing, it's going to do it. Okay, so there are no tokens here. Maybe I'm done here, so now it's her turn. Well, guess what? She's at the tail, so now... as soon as she activates, now we're back here doing this again. All players in rear sector discard 1 red from their hand. So now they have to do that, which sucks, by the way. This is going to combo off that. So now it's over here, and Torment immediately turns the player with the most red in hand and deals 3 damage to that player. That player may discard 1 green from their hand to destroy a rock terrain. Okay, and then we do the token. Okay, so as you can see, it can be a bit much. Now there's actually a bit more there, right? At the end of the round, you get rid of the one with the lowest number, which in this case I think is at it's part of the 1, not the 3. And so then you would actually replace this, which now will do the moment somebody in the front activates. And interacting with that is cool, and knowing that that's coming up is cool as well. So I know, oh, well, to prevent that, if we can flip them, then because I've already activated, it's fine. But when we flip him, this will happen. And so either way, we're going to deal with that unless somebody can jump on his back somehow, or you can stun him or do something. But the point is that you're going to be doing a lot of this kind of upkeep up here, and then every time you do an attack, well, now suddenly at the end of the sequence, oh, I got to check that as well, and then you got to shuffle that, and then you got to shuffle your deck, or the behavior deck in particular. You're shuffling quite a bit, and they escalate with that, and to me, it just felt a little like if there was a way to have less upkeep here, I would have welcomed it. I'm not big on upkeep as a person anyway. It's just not my cup of tea. I don't really appreciate it or enjoy it. It's my least enjoyable part of board gaming. And because of the chain of events you can do, because other people can play cards on that too. And they can be like, oh, well, you know what? I react to that, and so he doesn't do any damage there. Or I let you draw a card, and maybe that'll get you that green thing you can then defend. And I mean, there's different stuff that you can do. So everybody's kind of interacting and piling onto this reaction chain because I placed a red card down. I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing I want to do was attack, and suddenly there's this plethora of 5 different things that are happening because I placed this 1 card down. And so sometimes it can feel a little overbearing, because then you also have to check the peril each time, because sometimes it's like every time he does this, what happens? Okay, so every time we're in the front, now he has to do this. So you have to like check all these different things, and it's a bit heavy-handed in the overhead. And probably the biggest negative for me actually was that it just... sometimes it's just like, I just want to play my game and build this combo, and every single time you're stopping me. Especially because it can happen to where it's like every card. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, now with that, I want to end on 2 important notes that I feel are important to say about this game before I kind of summarize and let you guys go. Number 1 is that this is a complex game. Coming from Candy Wars particularly, it's kind of funny, but you have to check so many things. Every single mechanic in this game is at play at the same time. So where I want to move is based off of where other people are and what other people have and what cards I have and what the terrain is and where he's facing and where he's vulnerable and what he might do. all because this trait might be if I move, I get attacked, right? I mean, there's all these different things that can happen, or I need to go through sand, so I'd lose too many cards because I want to be able to attack, but then I wouldn't have enough stamina. Well, maybe you can give me an assist. Well, okay, well, if you do that, then, then I do that, but then that might happen, and this might change what I have to do. Well, maybe I hide in a bush, and then I happen, to go after you. Okay, so let's do that. That was one decision, and that was one of the quick, easy ones. When you're looking at your 5 or more cards here, and you're trying to figure out, okay, so if this is on the top of the discard pile, then I'm going to get double damage. So I want to pay with this last, but I want it to be like the first attack I can do, so hopefully I can do more attacks. Well, this is a 0 cost attack, so I definitely want to do this second. So if I pay this one and then play this one and then do the behavior thing, and then do this one for free, then suddenly it's going to have double damage, but now I have aggro, and I forgot if I have aggro, he's going to attack all of us. He's going to lay fire down, and you guys have your turns. So I don't want to lay fire down here. It'll ruin the brush. So no, maybe I need to move first, but if I move, I won't be able to do that. So I can't do that. And you know what? Actually, he has a lot of struggle too. So I guess I'll do that, and I'll move, which actually allows me to draw a card. And so now he'll turn when he attacks me, and that'll put his tail back there. So you're going to get hurt. I don't know if you have anything to deal with that or not, I guess you have enough health there. Everything matters. You will be looking at his stance. You'll be looking at his peril. You'll be looking at your objective. You'll be looking at your mastery. You'll be looking at your weapons. You'll be looking at your cards. You'll be wondering what their cards are. You'll be looking about his position. You'll be looking about the board and every single terrain in each position there, especially where the people are. And you'll be looking at his struggle tokens and his behavior and which one's coming up and which is next and how many of these cards you flip, because you can count them and figure out if there's a high number or a low number there, probability wise, depending on if you have to do a defense. And if you have to do a defense, do you have enough to pay for the other stuff? And it just goes on and on and on. And oh, I have aggro, but then you want aggro because you get this if you do that. And it is a very complex game where it's great for power gamers. So I tend to be the guy that's, okay, you do that, and if you do that, then she can do that. Like, I'm planning everybody's turn, and I get not everybody likes that, but this is a power gamer's dream here, especially solo wise. But if you're one that just looks at this and be like, there are 3,000 combinations I can do right now, which one's the best? You're gonna just be staring at your cards for a while. Or if you planned on playing this with little kids that haven't been playing a lot of board games, you're gonna be doing their turn for them. I mean, just 100%. This is definitely a thinking game. There is a lot to take into consideration, and you can play very inefficiently or very efficiently. And I'm sure I haven't even scratched the surface on it yet. Now, I talked a bit about how, like, a power gamer could play this solo well, and that's because they could. This is a very soloable game. So one note is that it's always at least 2 players, and that's I think pretty important, because you could lose a few rounds of nothing with just 1 player. With 2 players, you get to heal each other and assist each other and kind of do that kind of stuff. Or one can be on the back and the other one can be attacking normal and stuff like that. So you're going to be controlling 2, but you could totally do 2, I think, just fine. I know I was able to do that fine. And then again, it scales really well for 2 players. And so you can actually have a pretty good time with a quick setup, a small footprint. I know we've all been playing either fields lately, and we've all bemoaned why there's a map way up here and a map way down here. And so half the time I'm right here, half the time I'm right there. I'm always sideways, and even then they're separated this way and that way, and then there's a space in the middle for whatever reason. I have everything I need right here. This is literally what I would do to play solo. Like, this is everything I need. Because I'd have a tray here, right, instead of this fluff here. So I'd have a player board here, a player board here, and I'm good to go. I can play solo. I don't have to get up for anything. I have the stuff I need here. I have the stuff I need here. I have all the cards and the tokens. I'm good to go. This is a solo setup. Easy as that. So it's very soloable as well. All right, well, that is my review. I know it was a long one. I do that. I hope you appreciated it. Hope I gave some good examples, and I hope you found this helpful. Hopefully, it allows you to make a very good decision on whether or not this game is for you. Is this game for you or not? For me, definitely it's for me. The theme, the card play, pulling off combos is so great. It beats other combo games that I've enjoyed, even like Reichbusters, out of the water. It is so awesome to have a master plan and get it done where I've purposely been discarding these cards because of the aggro cards, so I can get that plus here, and I can do 2 yellows to do that, and then do the red there, which procs this, and I can do another red here, and then you can have me draw 2 cards, and so then thanks for the assist, now I'm doing that, and suddenly I just tore through that dude's stance number 2. Take that, you stupid monster. It's awesome. It feels great when you pull it off. Really, really does. And you can get that kind of frustration where like, I could, but I can't because of where I am positioned and I'm on fire and there's a sand here. And if I got out of that, it'd just take too much. And I have to give out something to do that. And I hope I get something back. And, it's a pleasure to play. It's quick to set up. It's awesome. It looks cool. The minis are awesome and they look awesome. I love just about every part of this game. Not perfect. No game is. But there isn't a chance that I wouldn't be happy to play this with anybody that suggested it. Really fun game. And I definitely looking forward to getting more than these 2 guys in the full campaign. So I can, really just go through it and see what weapons I build and what all the stretch goals look like and just how awesome this game looks in its final thing, because the prototype already is a blast. So it really is. So highly recommended for me, assuming again that you're fine with that complexity and you're not super abhorrent towards upkeep, because there is a little bit of managing the cards and making sure the decks are shuffled and set up and whatnot. So anyway, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like. Let me know that you appreciated me staying up way past my bedtime to get this out to you guys as soon as I could. And I will be doing a details video on it on the day the campaign launches. So I'll be kind of having some campaign information for you so you can wake up hopefully and kind of towards the morning learn a little bit about the Kickstarter, which should be good. I'll try and get some good information about that for you guys. And really that's it. That's all I have. So I'll let you guys go. Enjoy the rest of your week. And I'll talk to you guys again very soon for another top 10 list. All right. Bye guys.